Before we talk about the elements of art, we want to examine some different aspects of visual art. That would be subject, form, and content. So what we're looking at are two paintings that have the same subject. That is, they're both paintings that depict a young woman, but they obviously give us different feelings and have different ideas associated with them. When we talk about subject in art, we're talking about the person, places, or things depicted in a work of art. Works that don't have any subject are referred to as abstract. Form in art is the purely visual information, and this is what makes these two paintings different. Even though the subject is the same, they're both paintings of a young woman. They look different, and the way they look different is due to the form, which is the purely visual information in a work of art. Color, value, shape, texture, line, composition. The content that we experience from a work of art is the psychological, emotional, or intellectual impact of a work of art. The ideas that the work gives us, the emotions that we experience when we look at the work of art, and the content is the result of the subject and the form combined. Subject plus form equals content. The formal elements, the form of a work of art, is where we get those elements of art, the purely visual information. That includes value, which means light and dark, color, shape, line, texture, and composition, which is the arrangement of visual elements. When we talk about subject and form, they're basically objective. That means we all can agree on what the subject of a work of art is. For example, the little painting of a frog on a cracker, we can all agree that that's the subject. We might have different feelings about it, but we can agree on the subject. We can agree on colors and shapes. The person there in the top right has a sort of red colored flowers on her head. The painting on the left has sort of gray and neutral background with some different colored lines. What we feel from the work of art is more subjective, more open to different interpretations. Here we have two works of art with the same subject, both a male figure. They give us very different feelings because the formal elements are handled differently. Two paintings of flowers with very different colors. Two different depictions of the Virgin Mary from different time periods that have different formal approaches. Both of these images are portraits of a person, but obviously they have very different formal treatments. Two depictions of flowers. So moving on to these formal elements in detail, we have color. The first aspect of color we can look at is primary and secondary colors. Primary colors being red, yellow, blue. Secondary colors being the mixtures of those primary colors. So red and yellow creates orange, red and blue creates purple, and blue and yellow creates green. Another way we can describe colors is warm and cool. Warm colors are oranges, reds, and yellows, colors associated with warmth, the sun, or fire. And cool colors are blues, greens, violets, and colors associated with water or shade or cold. The way we experience color temperature is relative, so it depends on what colors are surrounding the color, whether it appears to be warm or cool. In these examples, the color in the center square is the same. They just look different because of the colors surrounding them. Analogous colors are colors that have a certain color in common that are adjacent to each other on the color wheel. So for example, colors that all are sort of in the purple, reddish, bluish purple area, purples that are all in the green, yellow, blue area. And analogous colors often create a sense of harmony. Analogous colors are used in interior design and clothing design and other applications because they tend to be pleasing color combinations. All these colors have sort of that yellow-orange color in common, analogous colors in a room. Complementary colors are those that are opposite on the color wheel. So yellow and purple, green and red, orange and blue. And unlike analogous colors, they sort of pop out and almost clash. They seem to vibrate because the colors are at such different frequencies. So if you want to create a strong, bold impact, you might want to use complementary colors. Orange and blue. Intense colors, we also call pure or saturated colors, have a high degree or 100% of the pigment of the particular color. So colors that would come directly out of a tube. Whereas neutral colors are colors that are mixed with gray or mixed with a complementary color. Neutral colors tend to be more warm, tend to be more, muted and toned down. Here we have an interior done with all neutral colors. And here's an interior done with intense or saturated colors. When it comes to line, there are lots of different styles of lines. Lines that get thicker and thinner are called weighted lines. Different sorts of tools make different kinds of lines. When we talk about shape, we can talk about two basic types of shapes. Geometric shapes are ones that are made usually with straight lines or perfect circles, whereas organic shapes are more natural shapes that are irregular. Organic shapes are associated with the natural world like plants and animals, whereas geometric shapes are more what we'd expect to find with human-made objects. But there are some almost perfect geometric shapes found in nature too, like the beehives. Value in art refers to light and dark and the degree of lightness and darkness within a work, and the value composition refers to how the values are arranged within a composition. So when we look at this painting of the Virgin Mary, we see that the light areas form sort of a triangle if you follow from the baby figure looking up to Mary and then back down to the other figures. When we talk about value contrast, we're talking about how much difference is there between the darkest element and the lightest element. More or less value contrast. Composition is the arrangement of all these formal elements. And there are two types of compositions, basically, symmetrical and asymmetrical. In a symmetrical composition, each side, left to right, is a mirror image of the other side. If it's an asymmetrical composition, if you divide the composition in half, you have different elements on either side. Symmetry and asymmetry. When you have an asymmetrical composition, it can be balanced or unbalanced. Balanced means that even though it's not symmetrical, you have about the same amount of visual weight or visual interest on either side of the image. So the abstract painting on the bottom left has different areas of the orange and yellow and the black lines, but they're distributed about equally on the left side as opposed to the right side. The unbalanced composition on the top right has almost all the interest on the left and not much going on the right. The painting here is typically thought of as a balanced composition because you have the big trees on the left, but you also have buildings and people on the right, and a big mountain near the middle and clouds near the right. That everything sort of balances each other element out. This one too could be considered a balanced composition because even though you have the big element on the left, you have these two interesting elements that grab your eye and also more color on the right side. This photograph is almost a perfectly symmetrical photograph. If you divide it in half, you get almost a mirror image of the left and right sides. Texture just refers to the surface area. Is it rough? Is it smooth? Does it have bumps? And there can be visual texture or physical texture. So to review the elements in elements of art or shape, value, color, line, composition. And within shape, we have organic and geometric shapes. Shapes have different proportions. Value is light and dark. Warm colors, cool colors, intense colors versus muted colors.